It's after Christmas Day, but we're still in the 12 days of Christmas, and we're going to finish up today with the first 7 verses of Luke. We talk about the innkeeper. You know, sometimes getting a hotel room can be an adventure, or getting a good one. We've had some. We've done a little bit of travel. We're not world travelers, but Katie and I have gone a few places, and we have stayed in some really nice places. I guess the best room, the nicest, fanciest place that we've ever stayed is in Charleston at Ansonborough Inn. We were blessed with a room when he gets it going.
Wow.
Like that. Beautiful, beautiful room. We were fortunate enough for our 20th anniversary to go, and then we went again a few years later.
For your 40th? No,
They ain't all like that. Yeah. Other times we've not had such good luck. We were going to Williamsburg, Virginia, for a family wedding one time, and you know, a long journey you just want to just collapse. You know, it's not that far. It's about a 7-8 hour road trip. You know how much you stop. But when we got there, we didn't have time to go find the motel and check in. We had to go to the wedding rehearsal and the reception, which doesn't sound like much, but it was another 45-minute or so drive to the ferry, an hour ferry ride, another 45 minutes drive to the farm where the wedding was going to be held. So we had the reception, then we had dinner, and now it's getting to be about 10 o'clock at night, and we had the hour drive back to the ferry, the hour ferry ride, the 45-minute drive back to find the motel, and you know, you just want to check in, you want to hit the shower, collapse for just a few hours of sleep. Our niece had made the reservations. We had no idea where we were going. You might be asking, how bad could it be?
bullet holes.
After all, it's Williamsburg. It's a touristy place. I couldn't find a picture of the motel. Hopefully they tore it down by now. But I found a picture of a place that was a little bit nicer than where we stayed. It was bad. It was bad, I tell you. Maybe you've had a similar experience. Have you booked a room online? You know, it's a convenience thing. You don't have to talk to anybody. You just book it online, and you got all these people competing for your business, and they'll do your bidding for you and all this stuff. And you know, how bad could it be? The rooms, the pictures are really nice, spacious, clean rooms. People enjoying a complimentary breakfast, continental breakfast. They have those nifty, you know, do-it-yourself waffle machines that flip it over. You ain't lived till you made a waffle in the shape of Mickey Mouse. I'm telling you, that's living right there. But then when you arrive, it looks more like a motel that's run by Sanford and Son. You know, it's a great deal, a bargain, and I'm sure the extra police presence is a good thing. The towels are probably clean. And, you know, the all-included continental breakfast is a box of Little Debbie's and some hard-boiled eggs. But, you know, apparently getting a good room at a hotel or inn has been an adventure for as long as there have been inns and hotels. Let's watch our video.
I'm all booked up, sorry. We didn't need much. What part of I'm all booked up did you not understand? I have no room for you in my inn.
Please. We've been walking for days.
Do you think you were the first person to pound on my door at this hour of the night looking for a room?
There has to be something. A closet, perhaps.
You can keep asking the same question. I'm going to give you the same answer.
Wait, what are you doing up? You need to rest now. we won't be in trouble. And I'll pay you whatever you want. Please.
I'm sorry. No vacancies.
Okay. God will provide.
Hey. Give me a minute.
So the scene we just witnessed was between an innkeeper in Bethlehem and Joseph and Mary. It comes from the passage of Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. The story has been told for 2,000 years, so some people assume that it specifically mentions both an innkeeper and a conversation that took place. So let's read it again and be reminded of exact details that were recorded and why it was that Joseph and Mary ended up there in the place where the animals bed down for the night. Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. At that time, the Roman Emperor Augustus decreed that a census should be taken throughout the Roman Empire. This was the first census that was taken when Quirinius was governor of Syria. All returned to their own ancestral towns to register for the census. And because Joseph was a descendant of King David, he had to go to Bethlehem in Judea, David's ancient home. He traveled there from the village of Nazareth in Galilee. He took with him Mary, his fiancée, who was now obviously pregnant. And while they were there, the time came for her baby to be born. She gave birth to her first child, a son. She wrapped him snugly in strips of cloth and laid him in a manger because there was no lodging available for them. So they journeyed to Bethlehem for the census. Joseph apparently tried to get a room. It wasn't that he didn't have the cash. It was that there was just no rooms available. It wasn't that he was poor. It was just that there were so many people in Bethlehem. They were there to be counted. That's why Joseph and Mary were in Bethlehem rather than in their current hometown of Nazareth. Bethlehem was where both Joseph and Mary had their historical family roots. So they had to go back there to be counted with the rest of people who called the city of David their true home of ancestry. Now, Joseph, of course, wasn't going to leave Mary back in Nazareth to face the ongoing ridicule and the snide remarks that were surely surrounding her pregnancy. She was better traveling off, even late into her third trimester. She was better off traveling to Bethlehem with Joseph. It's about a 90-mile journey from Nazareth to Bethlehem. But they made it. They made it to the crowded town just in time for her to prepare to give birth. And the events that were unfolding in these moments that we now celebrate all these years later, these were moments that were fulfilling prophecies from old that specifically mentioned details concerning the virgin birth and the little town of Bethlehem being the place where it was all to happen. Although the Luke passage doesn't specifically mention an innkeeper having a conversation with Joseph and Mary, somebody had to talk to them for them to find out there was no place for them to be. It's safe to say that somehow, some way, somebody likely helped this young, expectant couple find just a few square feet to bed down for the night in order to give birth to the Savior of the world. So let's assume that there was indeed a conversation at a door with an innkeeper and with Mary and Joseph. Imagine the magnitude of that historical moment in time. That innkeeper, faced with a decision to close the door in their face or invite them somehow, some way into their care and prepare for them some type of accommodation. Even if all the beds in his inn were occupied with travelers already, at least the innkeeper could get creative and help them find some sheltered place where they could have some privacy and escape the elements. Now, the Bible doesn't say that the stable or cave or whatever it was they were in actually belonged to the innkeeper. All we know is that there was no rooms available. What if there was? What if the innkeeper had said, "She's great with child? Come on in, sir. We'll kick somebody else out and you can take their room." He probably had been booked for a long time, running census week specials. The money that he made that week would probably been jingling in his pockets for a long time. It was the innkeeper's Black Friday, so to speak. And according to the scene from the video, the innkeeper closed up for the night and he hears the knock on the door. And in the final moments of his decision, he chose to not turn them away, but some way help them. His decision impacted the balance of history that we still celebrate today. But think about it. What an incredible foreshadowing that scene is to another scene that Jesus speaks of as captured in the final book of our Bible, Revelation. John, in his revelation of Christ, shares a compelling verse filled with imagery appropriate for us to consider at Christmas time when thinking about an innkeeper responding to a knock on the door of his crowded inn. Look closely at the words of Jesus in Revelation 3:20. Keep in mind the response of the innkeeper in Bethlehem while reading. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in to him and eat with him and he with me. In a sense, we are all here today in the same position that the innkeeper in Bethlehem found himself in. A knock. A knock on the door led to a decision either to open up and prepare some type of room and space for Jesus. The same decision is analogous and it applies to our hearts and lives today. If we are the proverbial innkeepers to our hearts, how much room have we made available for Jesus on the inside? Are our hearts filled with so many cares and worries and wonders and other things that when Jesus knocks, well, we just ain't got a lot of room for him? How much space in your life has been allocated this Christmas to people, to places, to presents, to feasts, to festivities, to family traditions? Or what about as we go into the new year? Just as Joseph asked the innkeeper if he had room for Jesus, I ask each of you today, have you made room for him? If so, what room? Is Jesus' spot in your heart front and center, or has he been shuffled out back to the stable? There was space in Bethlehem for Jesus, wasn't there? One small, dirty, smelly space. It was probably dark, smelled like animals, but there was one small place for Jesus to come into the world in Bethlehem. And look what happened. You know, life gets crazy sometimes. That's not an excuse or even a statement to make us feel guilty. It's just an observation that's true in more ways than one for a lot of people. Just look at Christmas time. It's a time when we ought to slow down and focus on Christ. But it's the busiest time for many people. The rush of the season, the hustle and bustle at times causes us to cram our lives so full that we can't even turn around. We sometimes find ourselves with hardly any room to even breathe, even with all the busyness and with all the schedules that we just can't fit one more thing in, even with those. I'll tell you, if you want something bad enough, you make time for it, you'll make room for it. If we want it bad enough, we can fit something in. Now, as most of us are closing out another Christmas season, we all stand on the precipice of another new year with more busy times ahead. Let me just today invite you to stop and invite Christ into the midst of all your busyness. Let him into that one small space that you got. And I promise you, it'll be the start of something bigger. In the past couple of weeks, we all have obsessed over the right food for our family dinners and for parties. Schools crammed homework and projects in. Colleges crammed exams in before the Christmas break. We rushed to make sure that all the gifts were bought and they were all wrapped, and then we collapsed for a day or two, maybe. All the while, we were too busy, too rushed, too excited to hear it, but it was there. Not Christ. It's always there. Right now, we have more preparations to make. As soon as church is over, I won't ask for a show of hands, but how many people are making the mad dash to the grocery store to get stuff for New Year's celebration? Maybe not many of us, but the majority of people in our country will be. Parties tonight. Got get-togethers. We've got to rush. We've got to clean the house. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. Some of you got to go get those black-eyed peas and collard greens for tomorrow. I'm going to do the peas. Ain't eating nothing that looks like wet grass. Ain't doing it. Even while we're sitting here thinking about all those things that we have to do, there is a knock. I promise. He is knocking. You're part of the beauty of celebrating Advent by the centuries-old tradition of lighting the candles that we did during Advent leading up to Christmas, is that it gives us an excuse to pause for just a few moments and listen with a quieted soul and ears that are tuned to a holy moment. Do you notice the truth of the prophecy from Isaiah 9 that says, the people who walked in darkness have seen great light. Those who dwelled in a land of deep darkness, on them has light shone. For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end. On the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time forth forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will accomplish this. That has been accomplished. That light that shines in the darkness. Let's imagine that light. Just imagine that you've been on the road all day. You have made preparations. The travel website, when you get to the hotel, somehow messed up and you're turned away. Far from home, nowhere to be, but you have to rest. So you cruise up and down the road in the dark, and then you see it. See that vacancy sign. They're always red, and they shine brightly in the dark. Vacancy. There's room here. You know, sometimes the light doesn't find us. Sometimes we have to look for the light. But the light is always there. And the Lord of hosts did this. The Lord of hosts found favor in Mary and placed a Savior in her womb. The Lord of hosts shifted Joseph's plans to quietly divorce A pregnant Mary who was not carrying his biological child and instead helped him to not be afraid to take Mary as his wife. The Lord of hosts provided all the needs of Joseph and Mary so that the Messiah could be born within busy Bethlehem. Fate did not lead Joseph and Mary to that crowded, full, no vacancy inn. Fate did not lead them to the manger. The sovereign Lord God Almighty led them there. Only the Lord of hosts could foresee how the knock on the door that night at that inn would one day lead to us having a time together in this place on this cold day to answer another knock on the door of our hearts. We are faced with an opportunity once again to prepare room for you in our own hearts. So this morning I invite you to stop the busyness. Look for the light. Listen for the knock. Can you hear the knock at the door of your heart and life in these moments? Can you identify with an innkeeper who's tending to and trying to manage a packed house of responsibility on the inside? What if, right now, this very minute, was your innkeeper moment? That defining moment of your life. Your moment to make a significant and historical decision. Do you find yourself with the door of your heart open to his knock? How will you choose to respond as the innkeeper of your heart? There's a picture that hung above my grandmother's recliner, rocking chair. Go on to the end of it, Zach. That's the picture I remember as a little boy hanging above her chair. I remember her sitting with her Bible open on her lap, and her glasses on the very end of her nose, and reading. And I can remember saying, "Granny, what you doing?" And she said, and I'll never forget it, making sure I've got Jesus. That was her way of saying, opening the door of my heart to the knock. What does it look like for you to open the door of your full and busy life? What does it look like for you to invite him into your jam-packed world? What does it take for you to prepare him room? Perhaps this moment, right here, after Christmas, is the best Christmas present you've been given. Chance to answer the knock. You have been given this moment as a gift to respond to the knock of Christ on the door of your heart. We're just going to simply spend a couple minutes in prayer. The altar is open if you would like to come. If you want to come and speak to me, I'm here for you. I'll be glad to pray with you. But I invite each one of you, somehow, some way today, to hear the knock. See what part of your life Jesus wants to be invited in. Joe, I'll ask you to come and play while we pray. And then we'll simply sing our closing hymn.